Hi, I'm Danny Crouch from Choose Your Chapter, and you're either listening to this on our podcast, using strengths to become a poker pro, or on our YouTube channel, chooseyourchapter.com.au. Now, this is the second episode, it's the 8th of March 2020, and I'm looking at hopefully becoming a poker pro and telling my story along the way. Now, these recordings aren't about strategy or hand breakdowns or the general poker sort of videos or recordings that you want to listen to. This is more around the psychological and emotional roller coaster that ebbs and flows throughout pretty much any situation that you are in life, and dealing with stress and what I do to better myself in that area, how I intend on improving, studying, and hopefully getting to where I want to go. So who am I? Where do I come from? A little bit of a recap if you haven't heard the first episode. I have a background in coaching, business coaching, mindset coaching, and what we call strengths coaching. Not in the sense of at the gym pumping iron, it's more around mental strengths, where we focus on your natural patterns of thought, emotion, and behaviour, and we look for ways to improve. And generally one of the tools we use is what we call the Clifton StrengthsFinder. Just Google Gallup or Clifton StrengthsFinder and you can find out a lot more information about that. So, as I said, I'm a business coach and mentor. I've coached in the vicinity of around 150 startup businesses over the last 3 years, and I've been coaching off and on for the past 20 odd years, anywhere from businesses, individuals, couples in relationships, sporting teams and sporting individuals, and maybe one day looking at the poker side. Again, not looking at teaching people how to play poker, more on how they may want to address their mindset and how they want to better handle situations. So one thing I also want to do these recordings for are for myself. So regardless of whether anyone watches this or listens to this, it's also about me and hopefully learning from what I do. Prime example, I watched back the first episode last week and noticed that quite often my eyes, when I'm trying to recap on what I'm doing, they'd look up. Now, the general consensus is if you look up and to your left, and I'm hoping that's reflected in the right way on the video screen, that generally suggests that you are trying to remember what's happened or generally what the truth is. And then when people are looking to lie or be deceitful, they might look to up to the right. That's trying to use your imagination and come up with some sort of a story. So straight away, I've picked up on what I might have as a tell. So I've got to be consciously aware of where my eyes are and where they're going. So that's my basic credibility. Part of the process over the coming weeks and months is obviously to diarise my emotional and psychological state as I go through this process. And hopefully as people become more familiar around the StrengthsFinder, they may want to be involved in that, and we might even look at doing some recordings of actually taking people through the process of unpacking their strengths. Generally what you do is you go to Gallup's website and you do an online assessment. It takes about half an hour and they give you your top 5 strengths out of a whole 34. What I like to do, I've actually been doing this for many years, I've actually unlocked all 34, and what I tend to focus on are my top 7. That being because I was born on the 7th of the 7th, so therefore my number is 7, but also there's 7 days of the week. So I like to focus on one particular strength on each day of the week. Starting on a Monday, which will be number 1, and just by chance, number 7 is communication, which is today, which is Sunday. So communication is all about the ability to communicate in a great way and engage with people. So I thought what a great day to do some recordings and videos and podcasts and stuff like that. So that's where that's heading. A little recap on the week. So I play some low-level tournaments just to practice and try new strategies just at the local pub or venue, somewhere between $8 and $20 a tournament. I'm not really classing this as my bankroll. It's more of a study setup. So I play that on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And last week or this week, fairly average. I think what I've found is in my head, I'm listening to a couple of poker coaches and trying to pick up new techniques and sitting there trying to read the table, learn about the players, watching their body language, watching for tells, also trying to strategize in my head these different things that I've been taught and learnt. It was just becoming overwhelming. So I was not playing at my best ability. So a little bit off-putting in that sense, but for me, it's about learning and looking back at my mistakes and trying to identify those as quickly as possible. My number one strength is Maximiser, which is all about seeing what's good and wanting to make it better, or looking for areas of excellence, which means on the opposite side is I don't have a lot of patience for mistakes. So I have to develop that strength. I need to focus mentally on being able to accept that, hey, I'm going to make mistakes. Where the excellence comes is from learning from those mistakes and wanting to make that better. So Tuesday, Thursday, great. And Thursday, being day 4, is Activator, my Activator strength, which helps me get going. And as I mentioned last week, these two strengths, Maximiser and Activator, they've sort of butted heads with each other over the last 6 weeks, with me trying to get the ball rolling in actually starting out, going to the casino and playing poker. So my Maximiser is always sitting back saying, I shouldn't be absolute, it's not always, but often my Maximiser is saying, hang on, don't go yet, you may not be good enough, you might not quite have the skills, so maybe you shouldn't go. Where my Activator is going, come on, get into it, let's give it a go, you can only learn by jumping in the deep end, let's do it. So Thursday for me, throughout the day, was a little nerve-wracking, because Thursday night was going to be my first night to venture down to the casino and actually invest some of my bankroll. So my Activator was saying, yes, let's do this. Where my Maximiser was saying, are you sure? Are you absolutely sure today's the day you want to get started? You've been learning so much, and in the tournaments that you've been playing, you're not really getting it right. Maybe it's too soon. So I was building up inside all this emotion and almost anxiety to a degree, and nervousness of wanting to actually get going. And that massively reflected on when I actually did turn up to the casino. So I could feel the cortisol in my blood sort of bubbling. And that comes from when you're not feeling comfortable. And I knew I wasn't feeling comfortable. So I sat down, obviously a bunch of strangers I'd never met before. There were some people with massive stacks and some people with smaller stacks. And I think within the first 5 or 10 minutes, which is karma, my connectedness, number 2 strength is whatever's meant to happen will happen. I lost a massive pot and I made a massive mistake, which I'm content with now. I've looked at it and addressed what I was doing, and I was trying to be sneaky, and within the first 10 minutes of playing real cash games, it was a mistake. So I live with that. It's got my bankroll at a negative, which is fine. But what I've learned and what I've identified over the last 3 days is, as I've said with all the startup businesses that I've worked with, you need some capital. You need to put some capital into and invest in your business. So the way I'm looking at it over the next month or however long, the bankroll that I'm putting in, it's not so much about winning money, it's about learning. It's about putting hours on the table and getting that experience. And that's going to come at a cost. So as long as I can try and minimize the mistakes and focus on just learning a few things every single time that I go down to the casino and even in the smaller tournaments, I'm going to be ahead. That may come at a small cost, but that's the price I've got to pay to set up this business that I want to do. I'm not going to frivolously throw it around and just chuck money around and all that sort of stuff. To add to that, with the recap, one of my intentions for the month of March was to not drink. I'm a standard drinker, smoker, gambler. My intention was to give up drinking for the month of March and give up smoking for the month of March, which interestingly enough, yes, it's day 8. I haven't had a drink and starting to feel pretty good about it. Day 4, Activator. What I found was it's actually the 5th day of the month. On around the Tuesday, Wednesday, being the 3rd or 4th day of not smoking, I really started to become frustrated, and it came out in my tone, it came out in my demeanour, and of course the person most affected was my partner, Nicole. And for me to be looking at doing this as a full-time job, there's going to need to be a lot of support there, because I'm going to be out till early hours of the morning on certain times. She has a 9-to-5 job, where if I'm out in the evenings, then we're not going to see each other. So I've really got to focus on not just my state of mind, but also the relationship there. So I decided, you know what, smoking and drinking and gambling and giving up all three at once may be too big a task. So on Thursday, I decided to kick back into the smoking. Now, some of you may say, "Oh, that's soft. That's you've got no discipline. That's fine." But for me, the decision that I made that I'm happy with is that at this point in time, my relationship is more important. And if I am trying to get something off the ground, like studying and wanting to become a pro poker player, um, I need to have a relationship that's strong and bonded. So the alcohol for the month of March is the first starting point. Once I get a handle on that, I'll then look at giving up the smoking down the track. So that's therefore why this episode's called Poker Smoker. I'm back smoking, and that's something to look at another day. I'm quite proud of the fact that I still haven't had a drink, and it's 8 days in, which for me is pretty good. Not a glass of wine after work or in the evening, or a beer or whatnot. And living in Australia on the Gold Coast, it's been extremely humid this month. So to not need a beer, and I've spent the last 3 nights out and about and not really been too concerned about it. So I'm really happy about that. So continuing on about Thursday night, I started out around 7:30, got there about 6:30. Didn't realise that it's often you've got to sit around waiting until a spot becomes available. Thursday night's a bit quieter, which I thought might be the other way around, being quite often payday, and holiday goers could quite often come up on a Thursday for a 3 or 4 day weekend. So I sat around for an hour, which wasn't great, again, for my psychological and emotional state, because I was thinking, okay, how can I do this? How can I do that? What have I learnt? What are those things that were said? What can I listen to? So I really had to find a TV and just settle in and watch a bit of sport. But my mind is continuously ticking over. Are you good enough? What if I'm not good enough? What do I need to do to be good enough? Finally, I got sat down, which is fine. I played through till about 12:30 at night. After my massive mistake, which was in the first 10 minutes, I then played for about 4 hours, 45 minutes, somewhere around there. So I ended up playing about 5.5 hours. So it was more like 5 and a bit hours. I played pretty consistently. I was content with that. So if I let that first major mistake go, I was pretty happy with the way that I finished up. Now, what really became important to me after that is obviously when I left. Leaving there at 12:30 at night, I come home. I'm literally 7-8 minute drive from the casino. Get home around 20 to 1. And Nick's in bed, obviously. She's got to get up at 6:30 in the morning to go to work. So I'm mindful of not turning the TV on and waking up the house. I'm mindful of what I can and can't do. Yes, I could probably stick the phone in my ears and watch something or listen to something. But I thought, no, it's probably best to go to bed. Now, one thing I didn't accommodate for was being kept awake over and over, considering what's going on in my mind. So regardless of whether it's poker or business or relationships, how often do we go to bed and just keep thinking, oh, what if I'd done it this way? Or, am I good enough? Or how am I going to get through this again? Or compete the next day or be better the next day? So going to bed, let's say 1 o'clock, I think I drifted off around 2:30 in the morning. So again, another one of my strengths, number 3, is ideation. So I love ideas. I love creating things in my mind. And most of the time, it's when I go to bed. The ideation kicks into gear and starts thinking. And if it's not focusing on what I did and didn't do right at the poker tables, it's also, okay, well, how can I make things grow? How can I make things better? What else can I do? And I started going down the path of, quite often, we use meditation first thing in the morning, during the day, and in the evenings. I've constructed some meditations for the strengths. So what my intentions now are to actually construct guided poker strengths meditations. And I'm going to put together another podcast, and you'll find them here on YouTube as well, the Choose Your Chapter YouTube. But I'm going to start up a podcast of guided poker strengths meditations, or GPS meditations. GPS, the thing you put in your car and it gives you directions. Well, this is going to be about giving you the directions in poker that you want to go in. So first ones are going to be about my strengths. So the first one will be Maximiser, second Connectedness, third Ideation, fourth Activator, fifth Futuristic, sixth Command, and seventh Communication. So they're going to be around preparing for the day, preparing for poker, preparing to study, that sort of stuff. And this has been an idea I've had for a few weeks. But on Thursday night, or Friday morning, early hours of Friday morning, when I was lying in bed trying to get to sleep, I thought, I wonder how many poker players have this issue of they go home at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and they can't fall asleep because they're just running through their head what they did right, what they did wrong, how they're going to be better. So what better way than to construct a poker meditation to help you sleep? So that'll be my next task. So put together the 34 strengths themes for poker meditations and also a sleeping one. I'll probably get the sleeping one out pretty quick because I'm going to need it myself, especially on the nights that I come back from poker. We then look at Friday. Now, because I didn't really get much sleep, I think, as I said, 2:30 in the morning. I was up at 7 when Nick woke up. I managed to drift off back till about 9 o'clock in the morning, which meant I ended up with about 6 or 7 hours of fairly poorly interrupted sleep. And I was dog-tired all day. I identified that studying more about poker just gets the brain rattling and thinking, and I was overthinking on Thursday. So I thought, what, maybe an idea is I won't do much study on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Give my brain the rest to focus on just enjoying the time and playing poker. And then Sunday through to Wednesday is when I'm going to study, do my reflection of hands, and so on and so forth. So again, it's about focusing on my mental state and being at peak performance. So Friday, being really, really tired, I wasn't sure where I wanted to be and how I was going to go back to the casino again Friday night, because the plan was Thursday, Friday night. Hopefully that's when the majority of people go. That's when I might find a softer game, and that may work for and around the times that work best for my relationship. Nick got home 4:30 on Friday afternoon and wanted to do something. So she enjoys a little bit of poker now and then, playing the lower level tournaments, really enjoys the interaction with people. Not one of the best poker players in the world, but very consistent. She only plays very tight, great hands, so she can last and often outlast me. But nevertheless, she said she wanted to play, so I thought, what, maybe the casino isn't the right place for me to start with because I am a bit tired. Maybe I'll go and spend some time with her because we managed to get to sit next to each other at the poker table. We'll go and have dinner at the venue, and I'll see how I go after that. And after that sort of a day, I actually thought, what, it's $15 to play in a tournament. I'll get some time to spend with Nick. Let's forget about all the stuff we've been studying. Let's just go back to the way I've been playing and just play your natural game. To be honest, whether I did that or not, I'm not 100% sure because I may have taken a lot of stuff in subconsciously and was playing slightly more aggressive or slightly tighter. It was just more about I wasn't continuously thinking of, okay, what should I do in this situation? I just allowed my natural instincts to take over. As it turned out, I ended up winning the tournament on the Friday night, which gave me a little bit of cash, which got dropped back into my bankroll. And it was around, I think it was about 10:30 at night, and I thought, what, I'm really, really tired. I probably don't need to go to the casino. I've had a decent win, and I don't mean financially, or I don't mean at the poker tables. I mean I've had a really good win that I've made some decisions throughout the day to not focus on studying, to not focus on trying to implement all these different intricate strategies that I've been trying to learn and doing all the maths and the GTO and all this sort of stuff. I just let it be, and I was really happy with that, both mentally and psychologically. So I felt good and was quite content on, okay, I'll go home, maybe we'll relax in front of the TV for a bit and get a really good night's sleep, and we'll get back into it on Saturday, which is what we did. So Saturday went by, had a pretty chilled afternoon, had to do some cleaning for the Airbnb businesses and whatnot. Ended up going to the casino Saturday night. We had a barbecue for dinner around 6 o'clock. I left about 10 to 7. Plan was be there by 7, hopefully sitting down by 7:30, 8 o'clock. Now, lesson to be learnt. Turned up at the casino Saturday night at 10 to 7, and oh my God, there were cars coming out of everywhere. There's about 5 or 6 levels of parking. I basically drove around the car park for about 10 or 15 minutes. Now, that might sound, oh, well, that's fair enough. It's a busy night. What I didn't contend with was how that affected me emotionally and how that brought up the frustration inside of me, driving around and around in circles going, oh my God, it's not something good for a Maximiser. We don't have a lot of patience. We don't have time for morons that can't drive and they sit in awkward positions and don't know how to find parking spots, and people double parking and all this sort of stuff. So lesson to be learnt there is maybe on a Friday and Saturday night, it's not a good idea to drive. Just jump on the tram and get some public transport and just go in relaxed. So again, this is about being mindful of the emotional and psychological state I'm going to be in before I even get to sit down. So I ended up parking about 10 minutes away from the casino and walking, which fortunately that far away, I got to relax and chill out on the walk. It wasn't too warm. So that sort of calmed me down a bit. And by the time I got there, I'd forgotten about it. But again, this is about being mindful of my state of mind and really controlling my feelings. So that was another great lesson to pick up on Saturday evening. Put my name up. Within 2 or 3 minutes, we were seated, which is a very big difference to Thursday night, where I was waiting for about an hour. Obviously, being a Saturday night, really busy night, there were 3 tables open, where on Thursday night there was only 1, and they actually had to open a table for us to sit on. So I sat down straight away with a brand new table. So I think it was about 7 fresh players came to the table. It took about 15 minutes to get everyone ready. But what that meant was everyone was starting on the same chip stack. So whereas Thursday night I joined and there were some people with 3 buy-ins sitting in front of them, there were some people with 5 or 6 blinds, and it was a big variance. And some people had been playing all day, and some people had just started, and it was hard to gauge. Where sitting fresh allowed me to be a lot more comfortable because no one really knew about each other than the regulars that play with each other, but they don't tend to give too much information away. Yes, they may know about each other's play, but they don't speak about it and share it in too much generalisation. So for me personally, it was a good place to start on a Saturday evening. And it was quite calming. Now, I managed to sit there till, so I sat down roughly, would have been 8 o'clock, let's say. Sat there till about 11:30 and the numbers started to drop off. Where I thought Saturday nights, somewhere around 10, 11 o'clock, you might start getting the party goers and the drinkers coming through and splashing some money around and make it a little bit softer table and hopefully pick up some pots. Didn't seem to happen. And what actually happened is the players actually dropped off and we got to the point where we had to break the table down and split up and go to a different area. So around 20 to 12, moved tables. I was ahead of my starting stack, so really content, not by a massive amount. I was just grinding away and focusing on the fact that I'm there to learn and just observe. I'm really happy with that. It wasn't about making money. If I did, it would have been great, but it wasn't to be at that stage. I was ahead, maybe a third of my stack, but that's what happened. Now, what happened here is I moved to another table, and oh my God, I think the big stack probably had 8 buy-ins behind him, which for anyone that doesn't know, that's probably about $2,500. And there were some big stacks on the table, and everyone had been playing there for hours. And I sort of sat down, sort of meek. There were a couple of people that had less than me, but it just didn't feel comfortable. I was that newbie to a brand new school where everyone else knew each other, and I was sort of left out. Within about 10, 15 minutes, I realised, I'm starting to get tired, and this table seems to be at a different level to where I'm at. And I just didn't have that confidence. I was raising the pots pre-flop, and I was getting over-raised, or re-raised, sorry. And people were calling and then betting, and it would just seem like a different level. And I quickly was very mindful of, I don't have to stay. I've put 4 hours in. I'm quite happy with where I'm at. Staying here just to learn a little bit more and possibly lose half a stack is probably not worth it in the long run. And the fact that I'm tired probably wasn't going to help me either. So I was quite content in saying, I'll get up and leave. But in the space of 10 minutes, I lost probably 20 big blinds. So that's the lesson learned. I should have gone when I made that intention. So that's how my weekend's gone. What I am doing and what I have done all week is every day I write in my journal. I set my daily intentions of what I want to achieve. So I'm focusing on every day saying to myself, I will be alcohol free and put the actual day number in there, all the other areas that I want to focus on for that day and try and implement into it the strength of the day. So my intention for today is obviously to do this recording and communicate with myself, because someone with high communication, we like to hear back what we're actually saying to process the information. So yes, I do ideate and like to think about these things, but communication needs to hear them as well as think them. So that's the intention for today. I also like to set up visualization. So I might just sit there for 10, 20, 30 seconds and just visualize how my day might be. And that will include everything from doing some exercise, preparing Airbnb properties, meals I might eat, where I'm going to be when I'm studying, enjoying the scenery and being happy with where I'm living and content with my life, sitting at poker tables, being with Nick, really enjoying my time and my life. So they're the things that I like to do every day. So as I said at the beginning, these videos aren't just to big mouth myself and try and build a following and all this. Probably the biggest reason for me doing this is for me to be accountable to myself. And if people get any value out of listening and watching these, I'll be really happy and content. And by all means, if you want to touch base, you can find me on Facebook or Twitter, or even email me at danny@chooseyourchapter.com.au. So that's my website. You can also loop through to the Clifton StrengthsFinder through our website as well. Just give us 24 hours and I'll send you the assessment. And as I said before, even the intention is down the track. My intention will be to put some people through our strengths process and really flavour in their poker and how that might help them manage their mindset. So if that's something that might interest you, yeah, get in touch there. Other from that, if you're either listening on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. There's plenty of videos there that you might see value in, and hopefully like it. And if you want to leave a comment, great. And then in relation to the podcast, same thing again, please subscribe. And if you want to leave a review, that'd be fantastic. We want to try and get some sort of engagement there and hopefully build a community, and we'll be able to connect with other people considering going down this path, or who may already be there and be experienced and be able to pass on some knowledge. So that are my intentions. That's where we want to be. I hope you've really enjoyed this. I'm having fun doing it, especially on my communication day, being my 7th strength. And we're coming up to the 30-minute mark, which was the intention, was to make sure these recordings stay within the half an hour. And we'll look to develop from there. So I hope you've enjoyed what you're listening to. Remember, I'm Danny Crouch from chooseyourchapter.com.au. Focus on your strengths. Bye for now.